You all set then? Okay. The committee will come to order. We'd like to welcome everyone here and apologize for starting about an hour later than we were scheduled. We had a whole series of votes that started right around the time that our committee would otherwise have started, so we apologize for any inconvenience to anyone. And I want to start out the meeting by saying how pleased we are and how happy we are to have our Eni back. He's looking great, and we're certainly pleased to have him representing the other side in these hearings. And whereas some committees they're kind of at each other's throats, in this committee we tend to get along, even if we don't necessarily agree. We do it in a nice manner, but we generally do agree on a lot of things too. So we're really happy to have Eni Mavega back, and we wish him great health for many years to come. And I think Ami, all kidding aside, did a very good job filling in while Eni was not here. Really did a commendable job, and thank you so much, Ami, for filling in. You really did a very good job. So I also want to thank our distinguished witnesses for being here today to discuss a relationship of great importance and a country that has a great impact on the national security interests of the United States, not only in Asia, but in other parts of the world as well. India is a nation of 1.2 billion people, and sometime in the very near future will, in all likelihood, be the most populous nation on earth, replacing China. And certainly is the powerhouse of South Asia, and has been called an indispensable partner of the United States. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership, launched on January 2004 by President Bush. Over the last 10 years, we have seen this bilateral relationship evolve, and today India is the 18th largest export market for the United States, and U.S. direct investment in India has grown over 300% during that time. It is expected that annual bilateral trade between our two countries could increase by 5-fold over the next 10 years. In April and May, India conducted the largest democratic exercise in history. The outcome of this election was historic because the former opposition Indian People's Party, the BJP, became the first party to win a majority of India's lower chamber of parliament since 1984 and became the first non-Congress party to rule India's federal government without coalition partners. In addition, Mr. Modi is now the first lower caste Prime Minister, the first born after the country's 1947 independence, and the first to not have been previously embedded within New Delhi's political class. We are all hopeful that the new administration will seize upon this opportunity to work with the United States in reinvigorating bilateral ties and building a more dynamic partnership. Assistant Secretary Kumar, I think your presence here this afternoon is reflective of how important trade and investment are for the future of the U.S.-India relationship. Prime Minister Modi faces the daunting mission of reviving the Indian economy and taking steps to encourage private sector growth. I'm hopeful that his strong positions on trade and business development will help achieve this. Initiatives to spur development in India are critical, and the U.S. can play a significant role in promoting and facilitating modernization efforts. U.S. businesses continue to face severe barriers, including patent revocations, compulsory licenses, and copyright privacy, among other things. This is coupled with concerns about market access, caps on foreign direct investment, and stalled bilateral investment treaty negotiations. I hope we can hear how the administration plans to address these ongoing trade challenges, especially at the U.S.-India Strategic Dialogue next week. I'm also hopeful that Mr. Modi's resolve to implement a more assertive foreign policy will foster further geopolitically alignment and cooperation between our two nations, because at the end of the day, U.S.-India strategic interests do converge more than they conflict. On the positive side, India's deepening relations with Japan paved the way for possible collaboration on efforts to respond to China's unilateral actions in the East and South China Seas. On the other hand, India's relationship with Russia and implicit support of Russian ambitions in Ukraine are concerning. I hope, Ms. Biswell, you can touch on that particular issue. Many of my colleagues are also concerned about the persecution of religious minorities in India, largely Christian and Muslim groups, and repeated reports about discrimination against women. India has seen a 30% increase in incidents of communal violence since 2012, which has resulted in over 133 deaths. I hope the new Modi government makes it a priority to effectively address communal violence against all religious groups and adequately punish rampant sexual abuse. Short of doing so, these human rights issues will only continue to impede efforts to modernize India's economy and expand opportunities for its poverty-stricken population. As the Obama administration establishes a plan for future cooperation with India, it needs to take a leadership role in building upon U.S.-India mutual strengths, finding ways to advance mutual trust, and doing a better job at helping India integrate into the international system. While the Indo-Pacific Economic Corridor and New Silk Road are credible initiatives aimed at better integrating India with the rest of Asia, they cannot be our only efforts to do so. India must play a more prominent role in the administration's rebalance policy toward Asia, because the challenges we face in the East and West do not stop at any one country's border. The new Modi administration offers us the chance to change this, to deepen cooperation across the spectrum that will harvest the region's ability to better maintain freedom of navigation, prevent the spread of terrorism, and inhibit the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Prime Minister Modi's scheduled visit to the U.S. in September acknowledges the importance a strong U.S.-Indian relationship can play in our future engagement. I hope Prime Minister Modi can address and deliver on the promised reforms that are needed to strengthen ties between our two countries. And I urge the administration to be proactive in driving efforts to tackle the most salient issues that negatively affect U.S. economic and regional security interests. I again want to thank the witnesses for being here and look forward to their testimonies. And I would now like to turn to the gentleman from American Samoa. Welcome back, Edie Feliumavega.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As India's newly elected Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, good days are coming, and I agree. I am grateful to our Heavenly Father for the good days and good friends. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to personally thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Barra for your support, your thoughts and prayers during my time of recovery. I also thank the members of our subcommittee as well as my colleagues in the House. I'm grateful to each of you and very grateful to be back working with you on important issues facing our country and the regions of Asia and the Pacific. I believe together we still have a difference to make. And so I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing at my request on U.S.-India relations under India's newly elected Prime Minister, my good friend Narendra Modi. History will remember India's 2014 elections this year as unprecedented. I will remember the year 2014 elections as an epic triumph because on May 16, 2014, in the most historic election since India's independence, Sri Modi won India in a landslide victory that gave Sri Modi the most decisive mandate for an Indian Prime Minister in 3 decades, despite the United States using every recourse it could to disrupt his destiny. No doubt Prime Minister Modi's destiny is to lift up the masses, assure social justice, and bring new hope for any and all who, like him, step forward and transform changes and challenges into opportunities by sheer strength of character and courage. Prime Minister Modi's victory is India's victory. It is our victory too. And I join with the good people of India and our Indian American community throughout the United States in celebrating a new dawn of development for all. Our U.S.-India partnership could be one of the most defining of the 21st century. While it is shameful that our government, yes, the United States, failed to develop a strong friendship and comprehensive partnership with Sri Modi when it mattered most, I thank Prime Minister Modi for accepting President Obama's invitation to meet at the White House on September 30th of this year. Prime Minister Modi's willingness to put the past in the past is a testimony to his track record of good governance. He is a selfless leader who puts India and some 1.3 billion Indians first. In recognition of his visit to our nation's capital, I joined with my colleagues in calling upon the Speaker, John Boehner, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid to invite Prime Minister Modi to address a joint session of the U.S. Congress. I commend the co-authors of the House Caucus in India and Indian Americans and their counterparts in the Senate, and also my good friends, Congressman Brad Sherman, Congressman Amy Bera, and Mr. Sanjay Puri of the Alliance for Indian American Business, and all those who are working together for this purpose. I also thank Mr. Puri for introducing me to Sri Modi in 2010, 4 years ago. In 2010, Sri Modi was Chief Minister of Gujarat, and I was chairman of the subcommittee. I flew to Gujarat to meet the Chief Minister at that time in his residence. I knew then what I know now. Sri Modi is dedicated, he's determined, he's dynamic, he's different, he's the key player for improved relations between the United States and India. Today, he is the leader of the world's largest democracy, and I have every confidence he will cut across caste, creed, and religion and bring alive the dreams of over 1 billion Indians in a world that needs his leadership. As a man of vision and action, he, together with each and every citizen of India, will create something special, an India of sustainable development and inclusive growth, and an India that will rightfully assume its place in the political and economic affairs of the world. You can be assured Prime Minister Modi will usher in India's new era, and the United States will be wise to support his goals. India will not be threatened nor be intimidated by any country. India will deepen partnerships regionally and globally in areas of defense, nuclear energy, space research, and trade and investment. India will also invest heavily in infrastructure, affordable housing, healthcare, education, and clean energy. India will advance the interests of the developing world and lead the way in establishing a new model for maintaining stability without constraining growth. Prime Minister Modi will devote it all to eradicate poverty. Good days are coming, Mr. Chairman. No matter the pundits and critics who have too long maligned Sri Modi and his supporters. And so once more, I congratulate Sri Modi on his path-breaking campaign, and I praise BJP Party President Singh for working shoulder to shoulder with Sri Modi to ensure that the spirit of democracy has triumphed. I also commend Mr. Puri for championing the cause and work of Sri Modi in Congress at a time when others were not courageous enough, and for holding firm even though he was also unjustly and wrongfully maligned. Above all, Mr. Chairman, I praise Prime Minister Modi from his beginning as a son of a tea seller of tea, to a groundbreaking victor. I wish Sri Modi every success in his historical journey forward as the Prime Minister that the people of India have long awaited. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And we'll now turn for 1 minute to other members who may want to make a statement. I'll go first to Dana Rohrabacher, gentleman from California, who's also the chairman of Europe, Eurasia, and Emerging Threats Subcommittee.
Sorry, I hope I wasn't too long.
First and foremost, welcome back, Innie. Grateful that you're here with us today, and that's a very good sign that we're having a hearing about our relations with India and talking about what good friends can accomplish together, because Innie and I have been working together for about 26 years now, and I feel that our friendship has helped us both accomplish some of the goals we've set out. The same will be true with the United States and India. And if there is any chance for prosperity, if there's any chance for peace and stability in large sections of this world, it'll be due to a cooperative spirit and a positive relationship with India. And Mr. Modi is a breath of fresh air. Let me just note, Mr. Chairman, that we face serious challenges from folks who do not mean us well or mean the Western world well, in radical Islam and China. And our central enemies of the future happen to be the central enemies that India faces as well. We need to work together to create peace. work together to build the standard of living of the people of India and enriching our own prosperity at the same time. So with that said, look forward to working with INI and with you, Mr. Chairman, to achieve those goals and build a better relationship with India.
Thank you very much. Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from California, Mr. Bear, is recognized for a minute to make a statement, and we want to again thank him for so ably filling in for INI during his absence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'll echo all the sentiments. I can't fill any shoes, but it's great to see you back. It's also great to see Assistant Secretary Biswal back before this committee, and my fellow Californian and good friend, Assistant Secretary Kumar. It's good to see you there as well. As an Indian-American member of Congress and a Gujarati-American member of Congress, this is an exciting time. I mean, there's a real time of opportunity, and I look forward to our realizing that full potential. The last decade certainly showed us what was possible, and there's a real opportunity now for us to take this partnership to the next level, both economically, geopolitically. India's importance is emerging in a very present way, and if we do this right and we take the long view on this relationship, we really have an opportunity, as the President has said, to make this the defining relationship of the 21st century. So, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry, is recognized. If you'd like to make an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, folks, for being here. I see the great opportunities in the country, in the coming years for the bilateral relationship between the United States and India, both militarily and economically. Of particular note is the immense opportunity for foreign military sales, as India is planning to spend up to $100 billion over the next decade to update its mostly Soviet-era military arsenal. Now, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership, which was launched in January 2004 by then-President George Bush. I look forward to hearing an assessment from our distinguished witnesses of this bilateral relationship over the past decade and how they see this relationship evolving over the coming decades, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, is recognized for a minute. And he's also the ranking member of the Terrorism, Nonproliferation, and Trade Subcommittee.
Thank you. It is great to have INI back. Thank you for distributing these CDs. And let me assure my colleagues that I will not be putting out anything similar.
Noted for the record here.
We've just seen an election in India in which some 550 million people participated. That is the greatest exercise of the franchise in the history of the world. For that and so many other reasons, Mr. Falyamavega, Mr. Poe, and myself have been circulating a letter. We now have 84 of our colleagues to join us in the effort to congressional leadership, saying that we ought to have Mr. Modi address a joint session of Congress. Finally, as to the nuclear agreement, I will hope to learn in these hearings whether India will adopt the liability protections that will allow American companies to participate. In light of Bhopal, I can see why that might be politically difficult in India, but as a practical matter, India will benefit from the additional competition to allow U.S. companies to compete along with those companies that already enjoy sovereign immunity, and I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Holding, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. There can be no question that now is the time for relations between the United States and India to be taken to the next level. Having visited India just last year, I have no doubt that the U.S.-India relationship can be made into one of the defining partnerships of this century. Joining up the Modi magic with the American dream would be a very powerful combination worldwide. Mr. Chairman, with any partnership, there's always room for improvement. For the United States and India to fully recognize the opportunity that exists right now, progress must be made to address concerns with India's intellectual property system and other domestic laws and requirements that have been a concern for a number of U.S. companies doing business there. And for our part, Mr. Chairman, Congress must reject ill-conceived immigration proposals in the Senate that would harm successful collaboration between the U.S. and India companies. We must also mend relations with the Prime Minister that were damaged with the denial of his visa prior to being elected. It is not a small secret, Mr. Chairman, that our relationship with India over the last few years has not been as engaged as it could be or should have been, and I look forward to discussing what steps we can take to remedy this and capture the opportunity presented to us here for a new day with India and the United States. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, gentlemen's time has expired. And I'd also like to thank the new guy, the newest member of this. That's right. Our newest member of this committee, Kurt Clausen, who is from the 19th District of Florida, speaks 4 languages and all kinds of other great stuff. And I'll now yield to the gentleman either to talk about India or if you'd like to talk about yourself.
This
You have
is,
1 minute.
this is a Samoan CD. I would say my favorite movies from foreign are Telugu, Film Nagar, Hyderabad. I went to school with Nagarjuna. I know Jagapati, and these are my friends. I love Hyderabad, I love Chennai, and I'm very familiar with your country. I have also run businesses with Mr. Kalyani in Bharat Forge, 3 factories for joint venture in Pune. I am familiar with your country. I love your country, and I'm hopeful with the new change in regime that the future and the land of promise and the land of opportunity of India can finally become so. And I understand the complications of so many languages and so many cultures and so many histories all rolled up in one. But this is an awesome country with awesome potential and somebody that we need to be friends with and that we can trust, not just for security, but what's also important to me is for economic development. And as was said earlier, technology and technology protection is, I think, a big issue in that. So I'm enthusiastic about working with you all, and anything I can do to make the relationship with India better, I'm willing and enthusiastic about doing so. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. And I'll now introduce the panel, a distinguished panel this afternoon, both of whom really need no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Nisha Biswal was sworn in as Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs last October. Previously, Ms. Biswal served as the Assistant Administrator for Asia at USAID. During Ms. Biswal's tenure, USAID reopened its mission in Burma and transitioned its programs in various countries to global partnerships in development cooperation. Ms. Biswal also worked in the Office of U.S. Foreign Disaster Assistance and the Office of Transition Initiatives and served as Chief of Staff in the Management Bureau while at USAID. Before that, Ms. Biswal served as the Majority Clerk for the House Appropriations Foreign Operations Subcommittee and as a professional staff for the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where she was responsible for South Asia. Ms. Biswal has also worked at Interaction and at the American Red Cross, where she served as the international delegate in Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. And we welcome you back to the committee. And I'd also like to introduce Arun M. Kumar. Mr. Kumar has served as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service since March of this year. In this role, he leads the trade and investment promotion efforts for the U.S. government. Mr. Kumar has extensive global experience in the business world. Prior to his nomination, he was a partner and member of the Board of Directors at KPMG and led the firm's West Coast management consulting practice, serving major global clients as well as emerging Silicon Valley ventures. He also founded and led KPMG's U.S.-India practice. Previously, Mr. Kumar was a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and has acted as a mentor and advisor to several new ventures in Silicon Valley and India. He served on the advisory councils at Stanford University and University of California, Santa Cruz, and he's on the board of directors of the U.S.-India Business Council, and we welcome you here this afternoon, Ms. Kumar. And I know both of the witnesses are familiar with the committee rules. You both will have 5 minutes, and there's a lighting system. The yellow light will let you know you have 1 minute. When the red light comes on, we'd ask you to wrap up as closely thereby as possible. We do give a little leeway, but not much. So, Ms. Biswal, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Shabbat, Ranking Member Falyama-Vega, thank you for having this hearing and inviting me to testify today. And I want to just echo the sentiments on the dais about how wonderful it is to see you again sitting on the dais, Mr. Falyama-Vega. It is a wonderful time to have this hearing and an important time to have this hearing, and I'm glad to be here with my good friend Arun Kumar. In the interest of time, I'm going to summarize the points which all of you have made so eloquently on the importance of the relationship and the opportunity we have, and ask that my full statement be entered for the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is no better time than now to re-examine the U.S.-India relationship. The historic elections, as you've noted, this spring conferred an unprecedented mandate on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his party, and also created a historic opportunity for the United States and India to re-energize our relationship. Deputy Secretary Bill Burns and I traveled to New Delhi 2 weeks ago to meet with Prime Minister Modi and key members of his cabinet. Secretary Kerry will travel soon to India to co-chair the next round of our strategic dialogue, and he will be joined by Secretary of Commerce Pritzker in underscoring the vital role of our economic partnership. Mr. Chairman, the Obama administration's rebalance to Asia is a strategic bet on the consequential role of Asia's 4.3 billion people in the 21st century and Asia's growing importance to America's security and prosperity. But for Asia to comprise 50% of global GDP, as many project, its citizens and governments must make the right choices to foster sustainable and inclusive growth, to promote open and free trade, and to combat terrorism and extremism. In all of these areas, India has a vital role to play. Its rise as a regional and global power, its economic and strategic growth are deeply in the U.S. interest, as has been noted by members on the dais. Like the United States, India increasingly sees its future in a secure, connected, and prosperous Asia-Pacific. We not only share democratic values, but also a deep interest in a peaceful and rules-based order. But if India is to achieve its potential, it will need to address myriad economic and governance challenges. Much of the excitement that the new Modi government has generated in India, around the world, and most notably in the business community, has been around this idea of accountable and effective government that can unleash India's economic potential. While my colleague will discuss our economic and trade partnership in greater depth, I just want to underscore that our economies, our businesses, our universities, and our people can partner in helping India realize sustained and inclusive growth and enjoy a vision of shared prosperity. Our trade has already grown fivefold since the year 2000 to almost 100 billion annually. We can grow that fivefold again in the years to come. And we are committed to addressing the inevitable frictions over trade through dialogue and engagement. Our energy cooperation, one of the brightest areas of the partnership, is helping India meet its growing energy needs and creating opportunities for our businesses through contracts for export of American LNG and fulfilling the promise of delivering cutting-edge nuclear energy technology, as well as collaboration on clean energy solutions. But as I noted at the outset, the locus of our convergent strategic interests is across the Asian landscape. When Prime Minister Modi invited regional leaders to his inauguration, he demonstrated his commitment to strengthening India's ties within its immediate region. And we see a partnership with India that spans east, west, north, and south to advance our shared interests across the Indo-Pacific region. Our collaboration on counterterrorism and homeland security has grown tremendously in the past several years and has already helped to bring to justice several of the terrorists in the Mumbai attacks. We are committed to further strengthening this robust cooperation in order to protect both our nations and both our peoples. Defense cooperation continues to play a vital role in our partnership, which Secretary Hagel's visit to India in early August will help to underscore. The breadth and depth of military exchanges and exercises have grown tremendously, and the Indian Navy is participating in the RIMPAC maritime security exercise in Honolulu for the first time this year. Additionally, as we speak today, we've begun our joint naval exercise, the Malabar, and this year, also with the participation of Japan. This is a great example of our trilateral cooperation and a manifestation of the U.S.-India-Japan trilateral dialogue. These military ties are complemented also by our growing defense trade. We are overcoming bureaucratic hurdles and paving the way to increase defense trade and potential for co-production and co-development. Mr. Chairman, the true potential of this relationship was best characterized by Prime Minister Modi himself when he said to us 2 weeks ago that it is not just benefits to the Indian people and the American people, but that the true value of the U.S.-India relationship is that when the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy come together, it is the world that stands to benefit. We deeply appreciate the strong support of the U.S. Congress and of this committee, as well as members in the Senate and the House and the India Caucus in advancing the U.S.-India partnership. And we look forward to closely collaborating with you in the years ahead as we forge an ever increasingly closer partnership between our two countries. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will conclude my remarks here and look forward to answering any questions that you or the committee may have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Coomer, Mr. Coomer, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Shabbat, Ranking Member Farimuvenga, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to speak about the Department of Commerce's engagement with India. I'm honored to be here alongside my friend and colleague from the State Department, Assistant Secretary Nisha Biswal. The Department's International Trade Administration is the agency responsible for promoting U.S. exports, expanding markets overseas, and enforcing U.S. trade laws. Our efforts are driven by the needs of our primary constituency, the U.S. business community. In 2010, President Obama said, the U.S.-India relationship will be one of the defining partnerships of the 21st century. While India is a large market, our commercial relationship remains underdeveloped relative to its potential. With the new government in charge, the timing may be right to improve our bilateral trade relationship. From 2000 to 2013, U.S.-India two-way trade has grown from $19 billion in goods and services to about $97 billion. Having recently returned from India, I would agree that the potential is indeed vast. ITA understands the value of exports and its direct correlation to job growth. Our staff in 100 locations across the country and in over 75 markets around the world is dedicated to helping companies enter new markets and expand in current ones. In India, our staffing is currently strategically placed with a total of 7 posts, making it the largest footprint of any ITA operation outside the US. Furthermore, ITA's Advocacy Center, which coordinates US government commercial advocacy, helps US companies win foreign government contracts. Between 2010 and 2013, ITA recorded advocacy wins in India with estimated contract values of $5.2 billion. Another focus of ITA is to encourage inward investment, and the Obama administration created Select USA, the only US government-wide program to attract, retain, and grow business investment in the United States. In 2012, India's stock of foreign direct investment into the US totaled roughly $9 billion. Last year, we hosted the first Select USA Investment Summit, and India was one of the largest delegations with 39 participants. Based on the success of this event, Select USA is organizing a second summit in March 2015. Doing business internationally can be risky, and India comes with its fair share of challenges. There are many areas that hinder us from deepening our trade relationship with India. US companies need to be aware of these obstacles before entering the Indian market. These include the protection and enforcement of intellectual property rights, localization requirements, high tariffs, and a difficult regulatory system that lacks transparency and predictability. ITA works to resolve these issues in a variety of ways. First, we lead the public-private US-India commercial dialogue. The dialogue has been effective in facilitating information exchanges between government and private sector experts on standards and regulatory procedures. Second, ITA chairs working groups on biotechnology, life sciences, civil aviation, and infrastructure in the High Technology Cooperation Group led by Commerce's Bureau of Industry and Security. We also support the State Department and USTR in the technical discussions on a US-India bilateral investment treaty. ITA also organizes trade missions and trade events, provides market research, counseling, and customized support to companies looking to export to India. In 2015, the department is organizing a trade mission to introduce U.S. firms to India's rapidly expanding ports and marine technology market. On the domestic side, ITA ensures U.S. companies enjoy fair competition here at home. Our agency is responsible for administering the U.S. anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws. As of today, we have 22 orders in place against a variety of Indian products. As I've expressed throughout this testimony, the United States remains actively engaged in India. The Commerce Department and ITA will continue to expand our contacts with the new government in New Delhi, the state governments where so many decisions are now made, and with U.S. and Indian businesses in order to promote exports of U.S. goods and services. Today, we just announced that Secretary Pritzker will be joining Secretary Kerry at the upcoming U.S.-India Strategic Dialogue scheduled for July 31 in Delhi. We will use this meeting and other opportunities to grow our commercial relationship. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony, and members will have 5 minutes now to ask questions. I'll begin with myself. Ms. Biswal, Secretary Kerry is scheduled to represent the United States at the U.S.-India Strategic Dialogue next week. As you're aware, in the past, this dialogue has faced some challenges. Can you tell us what issues Secretary Kerry plans to discuss and how the administration will use this opportunity to engage with the new Modi administration on longstanding challenges in our trade and security relationship?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do see a very important opportunity in the strategic dialogue, which will take place in New Delhi next week, to be able to relaunch the relationship and also put some extraordinary focus on some of the key opportunities, certainly the economic relationship and reinvigorating the trade and investment, looking at some of those issues, but also looking at energy cooperation, including civil nuclear energy, looking at the security relationship and counterterrorism, and then we will have a visit shortly thereafter by Secretary Hagel to look at the defense relationship and also put some emphasis on where we want to go together in that aspect of the relationship. We also see a tremendous opportunity to engage with India on the region and looking at the transition in Afghanistan, looking at the broader Asia landscape, the relationship and the trilateral dialogue that we have with Japan, and to focus on all of the different aspects of the U.S. and India across the Asian landscape. So we look forward to jumpstarting all of those conversations during the Secretary's visit next week.
Thank you very much. Let me follow up, Ms. Biswal, on another issue. New Delhi has given Russia's aggression in Crimea implicit approval and strongly opposed sanctions on Moscow, calling Moscow's interest in Crimea legitimate. Can the U.S. trust India to be a reliable partner on significant geopolitical challenges if, for example, we can't get India's support on this growing crisis? And has the Malaysian airliner shoot-down changed India's attitude at all in this particular area?
You know, I think that's an important issue and an important question. Clearly, India has its own history and its own relationships that guide its foreign policy, but our belief is that the more that we're able to closely consult on these critical issues and challenges that we face around the world, that we hope that we can bring closer together our perspectives and align efforts as much as possible. We do make the point to our Indian colleagues, as we do to friends around the world, about our perspectives, particularly with respect to Russian aggression in the Ukraine and the implications that that has, and we will continue to have those conversations with India and with other partners around the world.
All right, thank you. Because I'm, as chair of this committee and just as a member of Congress, I would consider myself to be very pro-India, but their attitude on this matter with respect to Russia is very disappointing, to say the least, and I think a lot of other members would probably agree on that. Mr. Kummer, let me turn to you now. I've only got a minute and a half approximately left, but the High Technology Cooperation Group chaired by the Department of Commerce is dedicated to promoting and facilitating bilateral high technology commerce. Still, many U.S. businesses are facing severe barriers such as patent revocations and compulsory licenses and copyright piracy and local manufacturing requirements, as I mentioned in my opening remarks. Has the Department of Commerce used this forum to address any of these issues to date? And then could you comment in general on those issues? If you could turn a mic on there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we use various conversations, various forums to address exactly these issues that concern our exporters, issues of intellectual property protection, localization issues, where our point of view is that India will actually do better by focusing on having competitive manufacturing as opposed to forcing localization. So these are all topics that we discuss with them all the time, including during my visit last week.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop at that point. I've got a little bit of time left, but I'm going to now recognize the
Mr. Chairman, would you yield in your 25 seconds?
I will be happy to.
I want to just totally associate myself with your remarks with respect to the Crimea. And I have to say to the Assistant Secretary, I assume the United States position is this is sovereign territory that was illegally annexed by Russia. And I hope that was clearly conveyed to the new Indian government. To me, this is not an ambiguous issue or something subject to debate. It is the sovereign territory of the Ukraine and remains so. I thank the Chair.
I'm happy I yielded to you. The gentleman from New York, who is the ranking member of the full committee, is recognized at this time for the purpose of making a statement.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very, very brief. First of all, I want to thank our two witnesses. Thank you both for your service to our country. It's very much appreciated. And to Mr. Faliamo-Vega, welcome back. It's good to see you, Annie. And let me just say that I feel so strongly about the U.S.-India relationship. I was an original member of the India Caucus back in 1990 when we formed it in Congress. And I've often felt that it is a shame that the United States and India through the years hadn't aligned itself more closely. I know during the Cold War there were some difficulties because India had a close relationship with the Soviet Union, and that kind of made it difficult. But now I really think that both countries should do whatever they can to work more closely together. Our interests are aligned, whether it involves the fight against terrorism or China's rise or just trade. I just think it makes so much sense. So I wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important hearing today. And you can certainly count on me as a friend of India, and I look forward when the Prime Minister comes here in September to greeting him. I think his election also presents us with a tremendous opportunity. So again, thank you both, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Engel. Now recognize Eni Faliamo-Vega, the ranking member of this committee, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Biswell, welcome back. Thank you for being here with us today. I have great hope that you will play an important part to work together to restore our U.S.-India relations. Your background as a former professional staffer of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and also the unique perspective you as a member of the Indian American community, I believe is a long-awaited combination that will help bolster relations that have lagged for too long. Madam Secretary, what do you foresee in this administration's top priorities for strengthening our U.S.-India relationship?
Thank you, Mr. Faliamo-Vega. For India to be the power and reach the potential as a strategic power across the Asia region and across the globe, its first order of business will be its revitalizing its economy, and we have a deep interest in partnering with India in that quest and partnering with Prime Minister Modi in that quest. I think that Prime Minister Modi comes in with strong wind at his back from the business community and confidence from the investor community about the plans that he has outlined and the vision that he has outlined for India's growth We think that the United States, that American companies will bring a tremendous amount of technology and support to be able to help that, and we look forward to doing that. We also think that as India's economy rises, that India will be increasingly consequential player across the Asia region, and we think that that is aligned with our interests. We have shared goals and objectives, and we like to see that not only do we have shared goals and objectives, but that we work closely together in achieving those goals, because we will have far greater impact across the region and around the world when we align and work together.
Secretary Kumar, your background is very impressive. You come to us with extensive global experience in the business world as an Indian-American financial consultant, highly regarded advisor, and a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. You are also a poet. I love poems, too. My favorite poet is Rabindranath Tagore. Prime Minister Modi also is a poet, by the way. I believe poets view the world in a rare and distinct way. From your perspective, Secretary Kumar, both as a poet and as a business leader, what initiatives do you think the United States Department of Commerce should undertake to encourage private sector investment and to advocate for better market access for U.S. exporters?
Ranking Member Fadi, thank you very much for that very interesting question, combining two different sides of my life. But let me address that really from the Department of Commerce. So we are very active in India with about 70 people on the ground in 7 offices. And we are focusing on areas that are of importance to India as they revitalize the economy, to use a term that my colleague here stated. So our view is to work with the Indian government and with private sector business in India and here to contribute to that journey.
I know my time's getting short, Mr. Chairman, but certainly good to see Dana here with us also. You know, for the past years, I've always complained to the fact that we did not seem to pay much attention to the Asia-Pacific region from previous administrations, and I am concerned about even in this administration. The fact that 2/3 of the world's population is in the Asia-Pacific region, the fact that our economic interests are just as important and critical in dealing with the Asia-Pacific region. And I'm very concerned. I know my time's up, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Holding, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, a housekeeping matter. Secretary Biswal, if you could please outline what the State Department has been doing with regards to the jailing of Amway CEO Bill Pickney, who I believe he has been in jail now for 2 months and being held without bail. So if you could detail that concisely, please.
Thank you, Congressman. This has been an issue of very active engagement by the State Department, by our colleagues in the Commerce Department, and really across the U.S. government. We have worked very closely and intensively with our colleagues in the Indian government to address piece by piece all of the different aspects that stand in the way in achieving a bail hearing and release on bail for Mr. Pinkney. We think that while there may be concerns that the Indian law enforcement have that no individual should be in jail for 2 months without bail, we think that that needs to be remedied and rectified as soon as possible. We believe we're making some tremendous progress, and we hope that we will have some very good news on that front soon. We've been working closely with our colleagues at Amway to make sure that we understand all of that, as well as having consular visits to Mr. Pinkney regularly by our Consul General in Hyderabad to make sure of his welfare and make sure that his needs are being addressed.
Good, thank you. And if you could keep us abreast of any developments in that, I'd appreciate it.
Be happy to.
I'll address this to both of you regarding, first to Secretary Biswal. What damage do you think, do you believe that the denial of a visa to then Chief Minister Modi and the subsequent policy of the State Department that he has to apply in order to find out whether he would be approved or denied again, what damage do you think this has caused to our Prime Minister? Now, I realize that as a matter of course, as Prime Minister, he is granted a visa as a head of state to come here, But, I want to back up to the other issue of him as an individual being granted, not granted a visa, kind of left in this limbo, especially considering the fact, he was cleared by the Supreme Court of India of any of the allegations made against him, which were the basis of the original denial of the visa.
Congressman, I would say that the administration is very much looking ahead, looking forward, and looking to the future in terms of building a very strong partnership with the Prime Minister and with his team and strengthening the relationship between the United States and India. We think that we are on the path to do that. The President called Prime Minister Modi on the day that election results were announced and promptly established
I realize that,
that
but I don't believe the
relationship.
State Department has changed its position that if Mr. Modi were to apply, he would have to apply for a visa to figure out if he was going to get a visa as an individual. And I think, don't you think there ought to be an affirmative statement by the State Department or this administration that they recognize that he's been cleared of these allegations by the Supreme Court of India, and that's lifted?
I would just note that when the President invited Prime Minister Modi and welcomed him to come to the United States, that he did so knowing that visa would be granted for him to be able to do that. And we look forward to that, and I think that we have always made clear for any individual that visa issues are determined on a case-by-case basis. That is not unique to the situation with the Prime Minister, but we look forward to welcoming him.
Well, I do
here,
believe
and
it's unique with the Mr. Modi that he's the only individual ever to be denied a visa under the particular clause that he was denied a visa under.
And I would just say that while that was the incident that occurred in 2005, that since then there has been no application and there has been no review or determination. And so there's been no hypothetical basis on which to make a determination. But we have definitively said that we welcome the visit of the Prime Minister, and therefore we don't believe that there is any further issue to be addressed with respect to that. I think the President has spoken.
One final
this.
quick, and I'll throw this out to both of you. Has there been any statement by the Modi administration, by the Prime Minister himself or people in the administration about intellectual property and any perhaps changes to the intellectual property system in India to further align it with our intellectual property protections here in the United States?
Congressman, I'm not aware of any formal statements yet, but we've had conversations in my visit last week with a number of officials in the Indian government about this topic and about the need to have a constructive dialogue on this topic.
Well, if you could prospectively maybe keep us apprised of that, members of the committee who are also on the Judiciary Committee, and follow these intellectual property issues closely, it would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now you back.
Thank you very much. Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California, Mr. Barrow, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In my opening comments, I talked about a time for opportunity. And, as I think about the Indian American community here, my parents immigrated here in the 1950s. And in the past decades, the Indian American diaspora has made remarkable accomplishments here in America in a country of opportunity. So the excitement of the elections in India that occurred, you feel that same ripple of excitement about the opportunity to create this partnership. It's exciting, as the only Indian American member of Congress, it's exciting to see 2 assistant secretaries sitting there from the community. So this is a time of opportunity. And I do think the administration has reached out immediately, has been very welcoming to the new Prime Minister, and really does reflect that opportunity, and vice versa. The Prime Minister Modi ran on an agenda of reviving economic growth in India, building infrastructure in India, and realizing India's full potential as a partner. And a partnership is a two-way street. So I think we're going to see a solid foundation. The next 2 months will be exciting with 3 secretaries visiting, Secretary Kerry, Secretary Pritzker, and Secretary Hagel. I think that offers to lay a foundation for this economic relationship and the geopolitical relationship. And then that leads into the September visit of the Prime Minister. And I am excited that I, along with our colleagues, have really pushed the Speaker to extend an invitation to a joint session of Congress, which I do think allows us to continue moving forward. My questions I think I'll start with Assistant Secretary Kumar. You know, when I was in India last year, you know, talking to Indian multinationals, and as they visit here in Washington, D.C., an untold story is the Indian foreign direct investment here in the United States and the jobs that those create. And many, with the energy renaissance we're seeing here in the United States, many of the Indian companies that are manufacturing products to sell here in the domestic market really see an opportunity to make those investments and build those factories here in the U.S. From your perspective, what should we do to set the table for more of that foreign direct investment?
So Select USA is a program that I mentioned, and we're very active in India in promoting investment from India into the U.S. The current level of investment from India into the U.S. is about $9 billion, and this covers a wide variety of industries. In fact, just to mention one from your state, we have a company that recently invested to build an electric two-wheeler. It was developed in Palo Alto, and it's going to be manufactured in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Another example from the state of North Carolina is an Indian textile company is creating a unit in North Carolina that will create jobs in North Carolina. So we're very encouraged by the interest of Indian companies as they go global. They see the U.S. as the best place to invest. They see the U.S. as a place that provides them with a global platform to go to other countries. And I'm looking forward to seeing more such investment from India. This coming week, in fact, next week, before we go to Delhi, before the Secretary Pritzker goes to Delhi for the strategic dialogue, she lands in Mumbai, and we'll have a signing ceremony for an agreement with the Exim Bank of India for them to support Indian companies investing in the United States. So this is a great example of two-way economic relationships.
Absolutely. And from our perspective, you know, when we look at India's demographics, it has a very young population. And I think one of the assets we have is our system of higher education, our system of community colleges. And maybe I'll direct this question to Assistant Secretary Biswal. I think there's a very real opportunity for our institutions of higher learning to help develop a similar system in India to educate, train that workforce to realize a very unique asset to India. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely, Congressman. I would just note on your previous question, I just want to make the comment that Indian investment in the United States has also resulted in over 100,000 jobs in the United States. So I think that that's a powerful example of the two-way trade and the two-way benefits of this relationship. With respect to skills in higher education, this is a big priority for the Modi government. The Prime Minister raised this in his meeting with Deputy Secretary Burns, and it's an active area of engagement through our higher education dialogue. We're looking at not only how U.S. institutions of higher education, our universities, can partner with India, both in terms of Indian students studying in the United States, as well as opportunities to expand access to education in India. The other major aspect that we're looking at is a community college initiative, how the very excellent community college system in the United States, which really expands access to higher education to so many millions of Americans, how that system can also partner with India to advance access to vocational education and skills for an Indian workforce that is increasingly going to be needed for India's economy to grow.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Clausen, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Having invested tens of millions of dollars in India myself, I have a little bit of understanding of your challenges and the opportunities. I always felt glad that I had a good partner, Bharat Forge, because India scared me. The bureaucracy scared me. The regulations scared me. The currency controls didn't even seem fair. The import tariffs didn't seem fair. It felt like my capital could flow in, but my profits could not flow out. And it felt like product from India can flow out, but product into India cannot flow in easily. And in today's world where capital generally has no barriers, it didn't feel like a totally modern system. And so therefore, I was glad that I had a very good partner that could help us through it. Otherwise, we may not have made the investments. As I see a new regime take hold in India, one who feels, at least at the start, to have a modern view of the world and a modern view of accounting. Is this administration now committed to eliminating some of the currency regulations, import barriers, bureaucracies, and controls that make business one-sided and difficult for those that want to invest?
So, Congressman, this is an important topic for us. I was in India, as I mentioned last week, meeting with officials, which was the first time we were meeting with the new government. And in all our conversations, we talked about the importance of a new business climate, a climate that addresses exactly those kinds of issues that you talked about. India is interested in more investment to create jobs, and these are exactly the kinds of points that we will be making in our conversations with the government of India and with the private sector and other stakeholders in India.
So I would just add to that to say, Congressman, that while we see some very hopeful signs, and the budget that was put out, the interim budget that was put out by the new government was certainly a step in the right direction, that this is going to be a process that's going to have to unfold. And so we look forward to continuing to see what steps the government takes to liberalize its economy and to attract greater trade, greater investment, which are all their stated objectives.
I am glad that Indian companies investing in the United States, and only private investment produces good-paying jobs. Governments do not. And capital votes by walking. And so therefore, I would just like American businesses to have the same fair shake in India that Indian businesses have here. And that, as in the ongoing relationship, that will be of interest to me, because I think fairness for our trade deficit is hundreds of billions of dollars. And some of that is artificial. And it doesn't have to be there. So just as your capital is welcome here to produce good-paying jobs in the U.S., I'd like our capital to be welcome there, and there to be freedom of capital so that both sides are on the same territory. And I ask cooperation and commitment and priority from your government in so doing. Can I have that?
I think your question is to the Indian government, and we certainly share your sentiments, and we certainly will advocate that on behalf of the U.S.
Of
government.
course. And I'm asking your opinion of how they view on it.
Like I said, I think we have heard a lot of very positive signals, a lot of positive intentions, and we will be engaging both through the State Department, through the Commerce Department, through our USTR, through our Treasury Department to make sure that we are engaging on those issues and looking for the concrete steps forward.
Okay, let's see some progress.
Absolutely.
The gentleman finished? Okay, thank you very much.
Yield
Gentleman's
back.
time's expired. I assume that the members heard the bells ring, but I think, just have two more members, so we should be okay with 5 minutes each. So, gentleman from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Mr. Connolly is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank my chair, and I would just say to our newest colleague, I'd be glad to take you to my district. Government does create high-paying jobs. The 3 wealthiest counties in the United States are the wealthiest counties in the United States. They're all in Northern Virginia. 2 of them are in my district. And it is because of the unique partnership between the federal government and the private sector in high-tech, R&D, and defense contracting. The government most certainly does create good-paying jobs, at least in my part of the world. It isn't just the private sector. I might also add that an awful lot of what's transformed the world was entirely a government investment. The idea that the government can do nothing right is nonsense. Look at GPS technology, 100% a federal investment. The Internet, 100%, called DARPANet, for 25 years, a government-funded investment, not a dime of private sector investment. And it transformed the world. This notion that somehow the government can't do anything right or needs to just get out of the way is not true. And at least my private sector and my chambers of commerce recognize how valuable and vital that partnership is here in America. And I assume it's also true in India. Ms. Biswal, I wanted to give you a chance because unfortunately, I took advantage of the 25 seconds left to the chairman. You wanted to comment on Crimea, and I wanted to give you that opportunity.
Only, sir, that we certainly agree wholeheartedly with your characterization, and we continue to engage with our Indian friends to ensure that they understand our perspective. And as I said, we strive to continue to bring our perspectives closer in alignment.
Thank you. I wanted to give you that opportunity. I appreciate it, and especially since you had the good sense to go to the University of Virginia. And you were a staffer. I, too, was a staffer. I also want to identify myself with the remarks of Ami Bera, my good friend from California, who talked about the U.S.-India relationship perhaps being the defining relationship of the 21st century. I couldn't agree more. I think that India is such an important potential partner, and we with India. I think it's actually potentially much more important than the Chinese relationship. We have lots in common. You know, we share a lot of language together. We have many common values. We certainly share democratic values in common. And I wonder if either of you would like to comment on that, because I think there are lots of prospects, and I am very hopeful that with the Modi visit here to Washington, we can cement some of those values and those relationships to move forward.
You know, fundamentally, India's rise and India's democratic growth, democratic development is a very important aspect, not only in terms of what it represents in terms of opportunities for partnership, but it's also very important in terms of the example that it sends to the other emerging and developing economies around the world, that democratic development does result in strong growth, inclusive growth, and opportunities for these countries. And I think that India represents that, and India's success with that model is very much in the U.S. interest, and that defines in many ways the core values of our partnership.
Mr. Kumar, and then, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield the balance of my time to Ms. Gabbard.
Now, I would just re-emphasize the importance of India's growth to our people. If you look at the last few years, U.S. exports stagnated when India's growth stagnated. The years before that, when India was growing, when it even touched double digits, U.S. exports to India grew significantly. So we are very vested in India's growth, because that directly helps our people here who can export more, and we create jobs as a result here.
Thank you, and I now yield the balance of my time to Ms. Gabbard.
The gentleman from Hawaii is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Connolly. Thank you both for being here. It's great to see you as always. I'll keep this brief. A lot of great points have already been brought up. My questions will really be more on the opportunity for us in the security partnership front with India. I think that recognizing the opportunity that exists with this change of leadership in India must be seized by us in a way that is very proactive and sensitive to what has occurred in the past, and done in a way that India understands that we greatly value the opportunity for both of our countries as we move forward. Wondering if you can just speak a little bit about what the security cooperation goals are that we look forward to achieving, especially as we look at all of the things that are happening in the world and the different relationships, but especially as we look at Afghanistan and the path going forward, and India's vested interest in the region, but also India's current presence already across the country of Afghanistan.
Thank you, Congresswoman. What I would note is that shortly after we have the strategic dialogue, Secretary Hagel is also looking to go to India in early August, and one of the key objectives there is to be able to engage with the Indian government to map out their priorities in terms of where they want to see the defense partnership go, and what we see as the potential, both short-term and long-term, for that relationship. This is a defense partnership that has seen tremendous growth over the past decade, and we do more military exercises, for example, with India than with virtually any other country. Right now, as we speak, India is participating in the RIMPAC exercises in Honolulu for the first time, and we have the Malabar exercises, which are trilateral this year with India, U.S., and Japan. We see great prospects for deepening that cooperation. But we also see that as India seeks to create a defense manufacturing base, and as India seeks to modernize its defense sector, that the United States is going to play a critical role. We seek to deepen that partnership, to look for opportunities for co-development and co-production in that range, because as India's capacity grows, the ability of India to be a force for stability and security across the Asia-Pacific grows as well, and that is something that we very much support. With respect to Afghanistan, Congresswoman, we have very close consultations with our colleagues in India about how we see that transition in Afghanistan unfolding. We had an opportunity to have some extensive conversations during the visit of the Deputy Secretary 2 weeks ago, and I know that that is a key aspect for the agenda for Secretary Kerry for his visit next week, and we will continue to look for ways that the United States and India and the other countries in the region can work together for stability and security in Afghanistan, which is certainly in the Afghans' interest, but also in the interest of all the countries of the region.
Quickly, and forgive me if you already talked about this, but what's the prospects or the timeline like for appointing a new ambassador to India?
Well, as you know, it's going through its own internal process of the White House. This is a big priority for the administration, for the president, and so we hope that we can conclude the internal process sometime soon, and then it will be with the legislative branch for Senate confirmation. But this is a big priority. It was therefore a decision of the administration to place Ambassador Kathy Stevens there as chargé. She is one who brings great skill and experience and expertise, and particularly her experience in East Asia as ambassador to Korea has been very welcome as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I'd like to thank the panel for their very excellent testimony this afternoon. Would note that members will have 5 days to revise their statements or submit questions in writing. And if there's no further business to come before the committee.
With the Chairman yield? I'm sorry.
I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman.
I just want to personally thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership and having this hearing today, and certainly thank our witnesses for coming, and look forward and a continuing good working relationship with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I am committed to that for sure. And welcome back. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.